So let's just get the high level overview. Let's go. Right. Can you guys see a screen that says Conscious Business Accelerator and the fast track to £100,000? All right. So, so essentially there's, if you visualize this like a mountain, this is the journey from going, hey, I've got a good idea, I want to be a coach, to being at the top of the summit and going, okay, cool, $100,000 a month, creating massive impact, living my purpose, getting paid. There's three summits or three horizons we want to smash out the park, and I've put these in a very specific order. Is that the first one is kind of cloudy like this, and that represents the kind of uncertainty around what it is that I do, who I do it for, how much do I charge, how do I get people to pay me. All right. And the answer to that, strangely enough, is make money, right? Because the way that you know what your offer is, what your product is, who your ideal customer is people are giving you money. That's how you know it works. Up until that time, it's you're really just thinking about it. It's just an idea. There's a fantastic book called The Lean Startup, which is really, it's like the Bible for product development. But you start off with these assumptions about, who is this product for? What is the problem that they have? What would they like instead? How much money would they pay us in order to achieve that transformation? And then you build a product that meets that need. So you start with people with problems and money. That's the fundamental ingredient to building a business, is people with problems and money. Everything else comes after that. Because you can change your product, your service, your offering, but if you don't have people that have the problem that you solve and the money to afford what you're doing, almost nothing else matters. You can make the best product in the world for people that can't afford it. You might have a great cause and a great mission, but it's not a business. Okay, all right. You can solve a great problem, but if there aren't people that have the problem, you also don't have a business, right? And it's a common problem in the tech space, but it's also in the coaching / impact space. It's just human nature, right? We want something to be perfect before we take it out into the world. But I'm encouraging you to think about this exactly opposite, is to say, sell it first, then build it. All right. So we're going to zoom in. So that's generally the three horizons. So money is the first horizon, the first summit, and you'll see that as we get into that, it's all about finding your ideal client. What is their dream outcome, and how do you position your product or service to help that client get to their dream outcome? We put that into a nice explanatory diagram, very much like the one I'm showing you now. And then we go and find those people that we were looking at in the first one, those people with problems and money, and we go and have conversations with them to say, and the conversations go, where are you now? Where do you want to be? What's in the way? And if you want help, we're then able to say, this is what help looks like, right? And what help looks like is whatever your offer is in the whatever we've developed over here. Okay. The reason I like it as an explanatory diagram is because, if I decide that I want to change the order of something, or I want to change what it's called, there's no manufacturing costs involved to do that, right? To swap those two orders around. Okay. And because you're doing one-to-one, there's no back-end delivery anyway, right? You can change the order, you can change the process, and it's very easy for people to understand. It looks really cool. It seems fancy, but it didn't really take that much time to create. But having that solution puts you in a different category, and it allows you to be very fluid about how you're presenting your offer, and then be able to kind of mix it up in real time based on who you're speaking to. So those are the fundamental ingredients in terms of level one. Create your offer, put it in a diagram, speak to people that have problems and money, until such time as people start saying yes. So each time you have the conversation, where are you now? Where do you want to be? What's in the way? We're collecting those what's in the way conversations, right? Because those are the fundamental ingredients. That's what we're solving. So Deepak, you're working with, essentially coaching kids. so that they become, successful adults. But the specific pain point that you're targeting, and I think you're part of that on that journey, is when you were targeting, hey, we want to make sure you have a successful kid, you got one level of results. When you started targeting, hey, you're about to spend $50,000 on a college education, make sure it's not wasted, you start to get a different level of result. And that's the value of understanding the problem.
Absolutely. And my target is the parent, not the kid, because the parent's paying for the service. I was on a discovery call last night, and she kept asking for more information, and I didn't have this diagram that you're speaking of, and I wish I did, but I'm not even sure what that would look like. Do you have any examples of what the diagram would potentially look like?
100%. Well, I've just managed to turn my computer off, so hopefully we'll get this back in a second. Cool. Just quick check. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, fantastic. Cool. I just managed to press the power button on my computer. All right. So this is an example of explanatory diagram, but this is how I would evolve it. Okay, so you're starting off with your ideal client and their dream outcome. Okay, where are you now? Where do you want to be? And this is just conversationally in their own language. What is it? Then as we're going, what's in the way? List out what the problems are. That's why are you not here yet? And that's going to be very specific to your ideal client, which is why ideal client is so important. Because you're building this pathway, and if you dialed in on a specific client, it allows you to be specific about the route and then specific about the problems, about the objections. So each time you're having a discovery call, you should be getting either new additions to this list or validations about things that are already on the list. Okay. All right, so that's where we're getting those things from. So you're collecting these problems. All right. Once you're collecting the problems, you start to then look at what is the best order to solve those problems in. All right. So, if you're trying to run a marathon, right, you start off with diet, you start off with weight management, you start off with sleep, you start off with exercise, you start off with injuries. Okay. I don't know, but if I was working on a program for marathons, I would give that some thought. Okay. So these raw materials, I don't know what the answer is, but that's your speciality, right? And you're starting to create those, and even just having a little bit of thought about what the right order is for those things already starts to put you in a different category. Okay. So then what we're doing is labeling the obstacles to say, okay, what is the obstacle? Give it a funky label, right? Label the obstacles. Then for each obstacle, create a solution. Okay. Create a solution. Right. My kid doesn't want to listen to me. No problem. We, teach you how to have your kid listen to you. Yeah. What you need for that is potentially empathy training or communication training, or I don't know what it is, but Deepak will know. Okay. What is the actual process that happens? All right. And then what is the outcome? If you can do that, what is the outcome that then arrives from that? So what is which is often the opposite. My kid hates me. Like my kid doesn't want to talk to me. I'm my kid's best friend. Okay, right. The solution is what you put in the middle, and you can have you can also give your solution a cool name as well. Okay. So these are the raw materials that you start to put out. Though once you've got those things and you start to get a sense of those, you can start to then put it in your visual language. Okay. So for me personally, when I think about success, this is very personal to me, and I encourage you to let this be very personal to you. This is the image I get, right? Okay. When I think about success, it's a feeling of relief. It's like, cool, like I've climbed the summit, Very personal to me. So this whole, so when I created my process, this climbing mountains thing kind of infused itself into my creative process. The 3x3 matrix is a very, you might have heard of the rule of three, photography. All right. But three is just, it's a very, very easy number for humans to understand. It just lands really nicely in the brain. I'm not sure exactly what the psychology around it is, but I mean, if you look in photography, like the basic law of compositions is to have this 3x3 grid, and then you orientate the key elements around that according to the aspects of that. So when you create something like that, that's got a 3x3 matrix, it lands very easily in a person's mind. So if you start left, so you've got 3 different stages, and each thing has got 3 things. You don't have to do 3 things exactly, but you could do a roadmap like this to say this is another framework from another coaching program I'm on, which is the $1 Million Sprint. And you start at the bottom left, you go through a whole bunch of different things, and you get to the top with the Hall of Fame. And then there's a stage there, and a stage there. Right. So that's another way of doing it. Lisa, who you know, Lisa Short, she's a functional medicine specialist. So this is what when she did her webinar presentation, she started off. So this is her format. This is her model of the what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different areas that she focuses on. So we're chatting about this and thought, okay, cool. Wouldn't it be cool if those 6 things were like visualized as energy centers or energy sources? And what you start off with is, maybe as you explain it, the batteries are weak in each of those areas. And then as you implement her process, inflammation, here's the problem with inflammation, here's the causes of inflammation, here's what you can do about inflammation, but in the short method, you can go super fast. And here's our proprietary solution, and that allows you to move from there to there, and that energy center lights up. Okay, so gut, if your gut's not right, it's going to be an energy drain. You're not going to get the power, but using the short method, you fix it, and then power. Okay. But in each cage, what's underlined is where do you want to be, what are the problems, put them in a useful order, label the problem, create a solution, and the outcome. Okay, so this doesn't happen in one go, it's a process. But here's the framework. It looks like you have a question.
Yeah. So I just want to so in my world, I mean, the way that I structure my program is about talking about life mastery, because that's what I'm working with these teens and young adults to come together with, is basically building a life mastery plan. And what I believe is that it's basically around being able to have the academic and the career success. It's about having the relationships with family, with friends, with a partner down the road. It's about having wealth mastery, and it's about having the physical, social, or physical, emotional, and mental health. So like what I would basically have those as being these 6 that she has, and then talk about individually each of those and basically the problems without having that, and what the solutions would be. Is that basically?
Yeah. So I think that would be a good place to start. I don't want to be too prescriptive at this stage and say this is how you should do yours, but sit with it, because it really needs to come from inside you. I can show you a lot of these examples, but I don't want to tell you this is the way to do it. Ultimately, it's going to come from you and be like your secret sauce. But I like that you've got these areas. I like that you've got these problems. Are starting to suggest a kind of visual language for you.
Like when I think about coaching and I look at it from this perspective of obstacle, solution, outcome, like for me, what I think about is that everything's the same. That the person has to have a vision for what they want, which is then going to create the gap. And then it's about their identity, which is based on their mindset. And then it's aligning from their vision, working through their identity, to then be able to start operating toward goals and then moving through those goals and developing the skills to then be able to create and bring that vision to life. So that's why I kind of find it, it's simple, but it's difficult to explain that because, I mean, that's what it is. It's at every point, it's about making sure that the person has clarity on what they want, and that you're working through these layers of making sure that their identity, which is really their mindset around, you know, who they are and what they're capable of, is aligned with what they can create. And that's not necessarily language that parents get.
Yeah.
Or non-coaches, which is then why I'm pivoting to coaches now, because I feel
Yeah.
like they get it. It's that it doesn't require that explanation.
Yeah. So I think, you know, start somewhere and then get better. You know,
Okay.
like there's no, like, I wish I could just give you the silver bullet. I mean, this diagram that you're seeing now, like, you know, to me, it seems pretty slick now, but I'm kind of happy with it. But this is probably 50 discovery calls that I've been through to get it. I mean, and I think I've got the graveyard of previous versions of that somewhere. Where yeah, I mean, this is one of the early versions of what this looked like, you know, before I got all of these pieces. But essentially, you know, the thing to start thinking about, and I can share with you, this is the template that my coach gave me, this exact, and I'm happy to share this with you, was just, it's like a PowerPoint template, which has got, you know, 3x3 matrix, like what are the 3 stages that you're going to go through, and then for each one, what are the 3 things, and then, you know, is it focus, flow, freedom? Amazing. And then what are the different stages? I wouldn't worry too much about being right at this point, because from a conversion point of view, the fact that you have a diagram versus not having a diagram is going to already put you in a big situation. And then each time you show it, it's, you know, your prospects will actually refine it for you.
Okay.
And
yeah, if you could share that with me, that would be great. I think that'd be a great starting point.
Yeah, cool. Anyone with a link? Copy. I'll just drop this straight in the chat. So yeah, I mean, hopefully yours comes out looking like something completely different, which is great. But yeah, you know, so you can start off with, this is like the 2020 expert, from survival to scalable, agency momentum, from autonomy to amplify. The simply scale method, from a stuck 5K per month to a scalable 10K per month. And, you know, the detail, I don't know, I mean, the first version of this, I banged out in 15 or 20 minutes. I was still playing around with it, and I sent it. I went to, I mean, I had a process that was for 1-person marketing departments. And I sent this thing, it was literally that diagram and then a list of prices. And someone said, you know, I had a meeting with a company that teaches CEOs, right? It's called the School for CEOs. And they said, do you have any more information about your program? I sent this thing away, and they disappeared for 2 months. And this thing had been circulated around board meetings and all sorts of stuff, that they were obsessing about all these different levels of this thing. And, you know, where previously I would have done a 20-page proposal. So it's quite interesting. I mean, just that having the diagram, it just fast tracks that process quite a bit and allows you, you know, a combination of power and flexibility, so that you can just iterate it and iterate it. Because the time you know when to start committing serious infrastructure to that and building out online courses and stuff is when you show that diagram to people and then they start giving you money. Right. That's when you know all the words are correct and all of those things. Up until that time, you know, it's, you know, give yourself permission to just play, because there is no, you know, if there is a right answer, it's not contained with me, it's contained with these people, which are the people you want to work with. They have that answer. I don't have that answer. So this whole thing is just a framework for how do we get to that yes as fast as possible with the least amount of hassle. And I promise you, if I find a faster way of doing this, that will become the next diagram. Yeah, all right. So it all starts with the ideal client and just being clear on who, and you don't even have to be 100% clear. Reasonably clear is enough to get started, because actually going out, speaking to those people, asking them where they are, asking where they want to be, asking them what's in the way, asking them if they want help, and pitching an offer is going to get you a lot further, a lot faster than almost any other thing I can think about at this point. Get out of the room, go and speak to people, because all of the details around the rest of the stuff, like this bit over here, charge what you're worth. Like, I mean, I've just seen your face change, Deepak, and I'm like, yeah, but that's not my words. Okay, it didn't come from me. It came from and I was like, and he's like, what is the offer? Like, what does it mean? And what, because this is all technical detail. Like, to me, this is like the 15-bladed Swiss Army knife, and he was like, will that enable me to charge what I'm worth? I was like, yes. Okay, so that's the transformation. That's the process, but that's the transformation. You're going from charging what you can to charging what you're worth. And that's why you do that stuff. Boom. Sounds great, lands really good, but not my words. And I think that the reason it lands so well is because it's, it came from speaking to people like you, finding out what the patterns were, and then going, okay, cool, that's what it is. That's what this is for. How you do it, there's a whole bunch of different levers and dials on this thing. To tweak different aspects of your offer to enable that transformation.
Gotcha.
Cool. Okay, so ideal client, everything else goes from there. Ideal client and their dream outcome, what's in the way, map out the steps, and to the extent, so these other levers over here, time delay, perceived likelihood of success, effort, and sacrifice, those are other levers on your dial of your offer. But you can't really influence those directly by just going, you can do this in 20 minutes. But by looking at each of those elements of the offer, looking at each of the elements of the offer, and this is what we look at kind of moving forward, is once you've validated the process and okay, what are the problems we're trying to solve? What are the solutions that actually solve those problems? What are the outcomes that we're doing? We then look at how do we solve those offers in a way that doesn't always require my attention. Okay. Because often, as coaches, we tend to construct our offers in terms of, how much of my time do you get access to? How much of my time do you, but the next iteration of that is that how do we enable them to go faster and still take less of your time? Can we develop tools, frameworks, softwares, systems, and stuff to enable your clients to actually go faster? Because that's value, right? So that's effort and sacrifice. That's, perceived likelihood of success is another one where, just in your offer and in your process, you're able to say, I understand what the problems are. I understand what the roadmap is. I have a solution. And then, things like testimonials, those sort of things also add to that. Amazing. All right. So what I want to share with you, but it all comes down to, the absolute foundation out of all of that is your ideal client, right? Because everything else, the whole process, the offer that you're creating is a way for them to get from here to there. The messaging is about how do we find those people and talk to them. Everything that we create is for those people. And people get there's a reason people say the riches are in the niches. And that there's such an obsession with your customer focus, your ideal customer, is that it's very difficult to build that pathway if you keep on switching up who it's for. but if you just pick one group of people, if they've got people, problems, and money, and you like to work with them, those are the key ingredients. The rest of the stuff you can build on. And I'll share with you the document. Sue, I can't find it right now, but I'm sure you have access to it. Just summon my magic wizard here. Give me the document. If you could drop that in, that's got a worksheet that you can start to populate and start working out, not working out, but recording what those characteristics are. Because the other booby trap I find in terms of kind of working out your ideal client is that for whatever reason, cognitively, like when we think about the ideal client, what we end up is thinking about it as if it's something over there. Your ideal client is over there. It's something over there. Whereas actually, you want to think about as if they're already here. Okay, and it's often people that you're already, you've already been working with. So there's something weird about how brains work. If we think about what we want, we use one part of our brain. If we think about whether or not we like this thing we have, it's a different part of the brain. So when you look about your ideal client, I want to start yourself off with thinking about, who do you actually enjoy working with already? Who gets the best results from you already? What do they love? What do they love? What do they hate? These are all just getting into the things. You don't have to there's a big caveat at the top of this worksheet here that says only answer the questions that are relevant to your business. Right? And not everything is going to be relevant to everybody. I wouldn't obsess about every question, but I would just scan through, and if it's relevant, just pop it in there and then just keep referring back to it and refining it and refining it and refining it. So it's kind of a living, breathing document that you work with. Because especially in the early stages of your breaking through Horizon 1, part of it is figuring out who your ideal client is. And you'll probably be able to go through quite a couple of iterations of building and sharpening that focus of your ideal client before you lock it in. Yeah, I mean, Deepak, you've got a great story about that experience.
Absolutely. Well, and starting with just parents, any parent with a teenager definitely left me wide open. And if they can't, I think just like you said, I think even if they have the money, but they can't assess the value because they just don't understand it, and they can't even understand it from the explanation. And I think a diagram will help on that. But I think just targeting someone that is aware of the problem, that actually really understands the value of the solution, which then allows you to be able to charge what you're worth, which is really, obviously where you want to be, I think is the key. So then it's not even necessarily a hard sell, because just the explanation doesn't have to be oversold in any way. It is what it is, and they value that. And so I'm excited to make all these shifts. But the other thing you said was, I have all this legwork, these funnels and landing pages, everything I need to change now because of this pivot that I decided here 2 weeks ago. So starting before all that infrastructure online is being built out is definitely ideal.
Fantastic, yeah. And I think my encouragement is like I say, set it first, then build it. Your landing pages, all that stuff, they're amazing. They're good enough. I'd probably do a bunch of well, I mean, you're captain of your own destiny, so making all sorts of assumptions about how much time it's going to take. But if you're happy with it and it's locked in, then that all the means. But just what I found is that there's a reason why these three things are so, because then the next level up is time and all of your systems, and that's the your website, your funnels, all that sort of stuff. Trying to solve like these questions around who's my ideal client, what is their dream outcome, what's in the way, what can I offer them to help with, how much money will they actually pay me to do this transformation. Very difficult to figure out at arm's length with funnels, and I found just going out and just speaking to people directly, even though it's not inherently scalable, but it's the fastest way to get those answers. Once you've got the answers, you can see the patterns, then you can build scalable systems, but you're building them on solid ground. Cool. So amazing. So so there's the documents. And again, if you know the stuff, that's great. pop it in. If it's not, don't obsess about the stuff that you don't know about yet. Keep referring back to it. You know, why do they need to bring you to the table? Who's letting your ideal client down? You know, what problem are they currently trying to solve? And a lot of these things are going to come out of those conversations. Question about how big or small your audience is. I mean, ideally, you know, if you have an audience that is big and getting bigger, amazing. You know, if niche is great, but you know, having an idea of the size of the audience is going to be super useful. It's also a difference, like if you have like every parent in the world potentially is too big. So I mean, I know for this product, English speaking coaches in the US and UK with less than 2 years experience, it's 148,000 people on LinkedIn. So I'm like, cool, that's how big it is. Probably fine for me, you know, probably big enough for me. Given that.
Is there a way to isolate on LinkedIn those parameters, but with kids?
Not as far as I know.
Okay.
Okay. So, you know, so that's part of why I would use the. Okay, so I'll let you guys fill this out in your own time, because some of these things are going to be irrelevant to LinkedIn or not. But I want to spend a couple of minutes just going through how to use LinkedIn to actually go and find those people. So there's two ways of doing this. I'm going to use the free version of LinkedIn to get started, because you guys have got the free version of LinkedIn. Everybody does, or everyone has LinkedIn does. You can invest tools and money in tools and things, but you know, let's start with the free version and max that out, and then, you know, when you're on a big pile of money. So the search thing over here is great. If we just put in coach, boom. What that'll do is search all of LinkedIn, including people, companies, jobs, events, groups, posts, courses, schools, services, for the word coach. Now, usually you're probably going to look for people. Right, so if we jump it down to people, you can see that there's 3,870,000, 3.87 million people with the word coach somewhere in their job description or title or about us page or something like that. Now, the reason I like to, when you look at your ideal client and think about who you're already working with, who are the people that you already like to work with? And because as you can see, you can search people, connections, locations, companies. And if you open these filters, you can actually search by connections of, you can search by locations, you can search by the companies that they're working on, you can search by past company, you can search by the school that they've been in, you can search by the industry that they work in, you can search by profile language, you can see if they're open to volunteering and consulting. You can look at service categories and also potentially add additional service categories. You can search by keywords in the first name, surname, company, title, and school. Right. So if we had to look at, and I like to, when I'm doing this process, work backwards from an existing client. Find an existing client that you already like to work with, and then work backwards, rather than trying to do it in a vacuum. It just kind of fast tracks the process. So let's go Deepak. Seeing as Deepak is my ideal client, let's see if we can find. Why is that you over there? This looks like Deepak. They're even more handsome in real life. Look at that. Okay. Cool. So I'm just going to use your profile as an example of the kind of things that we can pull out here, because you know you're also targeting coaches, so we're doing kind of double, triple value here. But so you see, you've got, so coach would pull up that one, all right? But you've got life strategist, success coach, young adults, corporate trainer, speaker, founder of Volition Academy. right? So you can do a couple of things with the search over here that are not obvious, right? So you could go to, for example, if you type coach and founder and then put plus signs in front of each of them, what it will do is search for search results that contain both of those words. Now it'll be both of those words, but not necessarily in the same order or even next to each other. So what you'll see is you get a slightly different set of results. Okay. If you do coach space founder space speaker, you'll then get potentially an even smaller set of results that is now leadership coach and speaker and founder. See how that works. Okay. Now, the other thing you can also do is look at people that are connections, of those people that are your first degree connections are always going to be the easiest people to speak to because they're already your connections and you can just message them directly. So you can see I've got 134 people that match that criteria that I could now just reach out and have a chat to. Okay, so when I reach out and have a chat to them, let's start with easy people. Now, what I do is I just scan down here and just use my intuition to go, is this someone I want to have a chat? Does this look like someone I potentially want to have a conversation with? So believe, yeah, cool. Believe that coaching has the power to, I mean, she's leading with her beliefs. I'm like, yep, I'll have a chat to you. Gary Young, I actually know Gary Young. I haven't had a chat to him in a while, so he's prompting up something for me. Andrew Dobby, I especially want to speak to him, but you can just go through and I'll just, if they are, so this is quite an unscientific process. You've used the filters to get a smaller list, but I would just go through now and go, cool, what do we, who do I want to go and have a chat with? And this is the kind of people that you actually want to spend time with. It really helps if you do this process with people that you're actually interested in and actually want to have a conversation with. So let's use potentially Gary. So what I'm doing now is I've taken Deepak as my model. I've used those filters and found out other people that are like Deepak. Absolutely, you can switch those search terms up. And I found, there's a lot of heavy lifting. A lot of the heavy lifting is done just by choosing those, coach plus blah, 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 if you're searching for coaches. Yes, you can filter by connections. You can also filter by location. So for example, I'm actually wanting to work more with people in the United States at the moment. So I could go people that match those things that are in the United States, and now I've got 17 people I can go and talk to.
Is there any way to target based on age?
Nope. Nope. Using yeah, I mean, if you use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you could target based on years of experience, but probably just you could do it by looking at them.
Okay. That's what I was thinking too. Okay.
Yeah. Do it just by looking at them. So this process, doesn't really work unless you've done the work to first figure out who you're looking for in the first place. This is not the spray and pray approach. It's not what I believe in terms of marketing. I believe good marketing is about finding and connecting with the people that already want what you do, not about convincing a bunch of strangers to do something. So, and especially at this stage, you really want to learn how to find your people and what these external indicators are. So in terms of age range, Deepak, what kind of age children are you looking for?
I'm looking like 15 to 25. And so, the demographic is typically about like a 45 to 55-year-old. And it's usually the mom that's actually looking for the service rather than the dad, because they're more in tune with, trying to get their child support. So typically I'm looking for, 45 to 55-year-old female.
Okay. So that's just the work. I mean, you can see what the filters are in terms of LinkedIn. These are the things you can filter on. And you can search. Now you can also see the filters are, search terms. You can also filter based on company, but you can also filter based on who they're connected to. Okay, so I'm just going to reset this and say, like, like for me, I met this guy recently called Ari, right? And he's really, really cool dude. He works at a coaching place called Mindful Talent, and they produce mindful coaches. Like that's what they do. They train coaches in this mindful coaching methodology. So it's right up my street in terms of my target market. So I know, he's a pretty good influencer. Michelle Armstrong, who's the founder, would be a pretty good avatar as well if you're looking for. So looking for female influencers would be a good place to start to use this process on. But I can look at, do the same search based on connections to Ari. It's going to be potentially a good way of me finding more of my people. But I think, you'll find, just by doing this process, you'll start to learn who your target market is. Okay, like when I first started looking for coaches, I didn't understand the ecosystem. I started somewhere and I was like, you're a coach. And I just looked and like, okay, cool. You seem like a nice person. You're saying interesting things. Just reach out and say, hey, I'm interested in talking to coaches right now. Bonus points if you mention your cause, right? So connect based on cause. When you are initially these conversations, no sales, nothing about your product, zilch. All about them. So this guy, LinkedIn ambassador, there's an easy way to talk to him about like, hey, I'm doing a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. I see you're doing stuff on LinkedIn. Love what you're doing. Potentially, we're working at different aspects of the market. Potentially we can refer business to each other. Like that's really, like I'm not trying to sell them anything, but we just make a connection based on that. So in another session, I'll talk more about the conversation frameworks, how we do that. But the cheat codes for now is compliments and curiosity. Okay. You are not allowed to talk about your product. Okay.
So I think probably, I don't know, maybe 1,200 connections on LinkedIn, and I have those messages like hit me all day long. I haven't responded to any of them because I just haven't prioritized them, but I'm consistently getting those, but obviously I haven't responded in months. So I've got like an accumulation of tons of messages from a lot of coaches as well.
Opportunity.
So, absolutely. So opportunity on one side. On the other side of it, if they're like me, which I'm there, but I'm not like active there. Like, is there a way to distinguish that?
In short, one of the quick filters is, if you pick someone.
And I post twice a week. Like I'll post something twice a week just so I have some activity there. But like on the messaging, I am not like active at all.
Yeah. Well, and you'll start to develop. I send probably 20 to 30 connection messages a week. I don't know, Sue, what are we up to? Like probably 100 connection messages a week. My connection message is very specific. I'm looking to connect to change makers, light bringers, people wanting to make a difference in the world. If this describes you, then let's connect. So it's super specific. I'm not saying I want to sell you stuff. I'm saying this is my cause. Like, are you a light bringer? Yes or no? Mm-hmm. And then people connect to me, and I then have chit chat with them. And connection acceptance requests about 10 to 15%.
Yeah.
Totally fine with that. I'm totally fine with that because it's actually filtering out the people that I don't want to talk to. So yeah, not everyone's going to talk to you. This is a long game.
Yeah. I think my concern has been like that because it's a long game. Is this where I need to be putting my time, and what is that initial conversation going to look like? Is that like a 15-minute conversation, 30-minute conversation, and then it comes back to time?
Yeah. So At this stage of the game, I mean, I wouldn't spend more than 30 minutes to an hour a day on this, but consider that this is sales activity.
Mhm.
Okay. This is directly sales activity. So, you know, and it doesn't take much. As you've seen, people, you know, you will get quite a lot of messages in your inbox, right? But most of them are going to be quite spammy and not really well considered. But this personalized outreach message kind of cuts through the noise on that. Okay, so this lady, she's a high ticket closer and mindset coach. You know, I mean, this is the extent of the conversation. Hey, Clee, I'm reaching out to light bringers and change makers. Happy to connect. I'm like, cool, love you. At that point, I then went and did a deeper dive into her profile. I made an insightful comment. You know, light bringer indeed. You have a powerful spin of energy that you bring to sales, and it's right up my street. Legitimate, because I've looked at her stuff, and that's what she does. How long did that take? 5 minutes. Because I've done this enough, I can see that, you know, we both operate in different senses. So, you know, this thing is that, hey, we're working at different parts of the market that made what is expense to collaborate and refer business to each other. Yeah, sure, no problem. I said, amazing. Should we grab a call or should I book one? She sent me a meeting link. I booked it. We're chatting on Friday. I mean, how many messages did that take?
Sure.
But if you look at the time, I started messaging her on April the 11th. All right, highly asynchronous. Okay, so did it take me a month or did it take me 7 minutes? Okay, because if you're doing this an hour a day, those are all stacked on top of each other. Okay, and it's just every minute a couple. Now it starts to compound because when you do a post on LinkedIn, the first people it shows your post to are the people you've spoken to recently. Okay, all right. So these things start gearing in on top of each other.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense. And then as far as like that call that you'll do Friday, like is that 15 minutes, 30 minutes? What does that look like?
At the moment, I would do 60 minutes. I mean, it's actually 30 minutes. 30 minutes. So 30 minutes, that's just kind of a get to know you call. Normally, personally, I would do an hour because I'm very targeted to the people that I speak to. And once I have their attention, I can get quite far in an hour. Because, you know, in a way I want to take them through is probably 30 minutes will have them just talking about them and their goals and where they want to be in building rapport. Then a little bit about me, like this is what I do, contextualized to what they do, and then I turn it back to them to say, where do you want to be in this? How can I help you? And at that point, we might go into discovery calls. So at this point, I'm very much at that, you know, that early stage of the game. It's very much about gathering the raw ingredients that I'm building the systems out. But out of that, the recordings of those things, you know, they're telling me where I am, where do I want to be, what's in the way. That then becomes my webinar content. That then becomes my social media content. You know, so they're all of those things are geared into each other. All right. So I'm building that stuff and I'm building out the webinar process. But this stuff, I mean, you could probably get to 10K a month doing nothing but this. You know, just having these very open, you know, one-to-one conversations. But as we're starting to understand what those filters look like and those searches look like, we're building automation to do that so that I don't have to. Right. But in order to do the automation, you have to have gone, you know, do it, try it, nail it, then automate it, then delegate it. You know, if you're automating stuff that hasn't been tested, you're just automating nonsense. Cool. All right. 2 minutes to go. And I need to end. I've got another call starting in exactly 2 minutes. But hopefully that gets you started in terms of the road up the mountain.
Absolutely. No, it was great. Thanks so much.
Fantastic. Thanks, Deepak. Thanks, Vitaly.